Let's get into rendering hair. We worked on the fashion heads in a different video. Now let's work on hair and color. I want you to feel about your fabrics first. Now remember we made a sheet, flesh tones. We had all of these different kinds of flesh tones, and sometimes you have some very difficult fabric colors. And when you're doing this color palette, you're trying to figure out what flesh tone is the best. Always work with that first, because hair color and flesh tone have to really work with your design. That's the whole point of this. Now I've got blonde hair, I've got red, brunette, and I've got black hair that I've rendered, and I've set up my markers so we can get through this together and figure out what's the simplest, fastest way, because we're not doing fine art. We're just trying to get into something that's quick, easy, fast, and looks the way you want it to look. For instance, if I start with my yellow, and I've got a nice light yellow here, I'm taking color and I'm doing one stroke like this and saying, you know what, just a big fat stroke like this, I'm done. Do you know what I'm saying? That's it. Or I take some smaller strokes like this and I just go into strokes and I make a little bit of color by the temples, and of course I've got some color here, and if that's not really showing up, I'm going to add a little bit darker value like this with the second marker, or I can tell you I take marker pencil, this is Prisma pencil, and I just add some colored pencil. But I always worry that that texture is going to look like my fabric or mirror my fabric, and I want my hair just to be there but not in the way of my clothing design. So as I was saying before, if you want to get a little bit more complex, I'm going to do strokes because that's kind of like the direction of the hair and this particular hairstyle, which is so simple. And here I'm going to add a little bit more value, a little bit darker value, maybe getting darker by the temples. And if I really take it further, that's 3 layers. I'm not sure if you really want to get into that kind of like coloring, but there you go. Now I've got 3 steps. And again, if I wanted to say just direction. I remind you, that's fastest, and that if you've got a lot of work, that might be the simplest way to go. Okay, that's for my blondes. What about my redheads? And by the way, I set my markers up. Redhead, if you said to me that I'm just going to do this and work on colored pencil, again, that's okay, but I remind you that if you've got fabric and textures with fabric, that could be an issue. So maybe it's easiest for us to work with hair color and say, just again, that stroke. And I've just got a terracotta here in the carmine red, and that's it. Or I take it and I do little strokes, again, like my blonde hair, go up by the temples, a little bit by the actual hairline, and now I've got my terracotta, and I could just build in a little deeper value towards the bottom of the hair, or back by the temples. That's pretty simple. Again, I can use my line. If I just had my line, my pen line, my outline contour, and I take it and I get my hair to just kind of like go like that. So simple, quick, easy, very, very fast. That's what you're looking for in hair color. And I'm taking back to the brown and saying with the brown, now you're kind of like really close to flesh tone again, or your fabric colors. And I'm thinking, this is a chocolate touch marker. It's just going to be, now see that little temple, that's not temple, I'm sorry, the top of the head, the crown, the round shape of the head. That's the way I'm doing the hair, because the hair has to work with the head, with the direction of the body, with the whole kind of setup so that there's a rhythm to your figure. That's hair. You know what? I'm done as far as I'm concerned, and that's it. Or again, I can use the same steps that I was using with the blonde and the brunette and the redhead, and that's to go back and get a little darker marker, a little deeper into the coloring. A colored pencil, again, I'm not so sure, but you can. Just use the side of it. That's the side versus the point, because the point you can get more strokes in the hair color if you wanted it that way, but don't take too long. You've got more work to do. What you want is done quickly. And black hair, sometimes with black hair, and take a look at this. If you've got the brush tip, boy, is that going to make your life easy. And I'm just going to work and make that kind of round and get that in there. And if you want to get a little comic booky and you want a little glow on it, you get a little one of those deep ultramarine colors in there. And there's the black hair. Pretty simple. I remind you, when you're working on hair color, work in the direction of your hairstyle, kind of contour it so it feels round, because what you don't really want is for it to just feel flat. That doesn't quite work for me, and I doubt it's going to work for you, but again, this is your style, your drawing. Practice however you feel comfortable with the head, and it's going to be really fun for you to do.